What do you do when you have a really packed schedule for the week? Important meetings and tasks here and there. Your day starts out very early in the morning and runs pretty late into the night, but you still want to consistently show up and put out something there. This is exactly how my week has played out. Today is day 7, and I'm here to pick up from where I stopped. Oh, how I wish I had an editor right now, because my week has been from one thing to another. It's been packed. So many events have played out, and there's been so many learning curves, so many things that I wish I could document, could point down. But if I do, I've done some, but where's the time to edit them? Where's the time to upload, etc. But yeah, it's been a great week. It's been an amazing week. I just listed out some things here to guide the conversation, so that I'm straight to the point and objective about this video. And a couple of things that have happened this week, if I could do a quick recap, is number one, there has been which before I go into that, I just think that moving on, by the time I'm done with this countdown of this consistent day-to-day journaling, what I would how I will retain it is by having weekly updates. So weekly updates of how the week has panned out, important highlights during the week, something I learned, and maybe a review of a book, right? So if I see how the week has played out, I could remember in no particular order. I think on Wednesday there was the FCCPC meeting, which is Federal Consumer. Can't remember everything right now. We had that meeting. It was a general meeting of people of any industry that concerns consumers. It was at Kudrat Abiola Way. He had 158, an event center, and that meeting was hard. It was a really good one. The president of NANTA was there, so because of that, as he represented the association, some of us who are members of the association followed. It was an interesting meeting, interesting in the sense of what I was expecting versus what I saw. It was an interesting display of array, but I won't get into that. There was also Tuesday night. Tuesday, I was at VI. We had to see the CE for Travel Hub. By the way, Travel Hub is a project that we are currently undergoing, which is we are currently developing, which is a hub. It's supposed to be a hub, a gateway, and a pathway for people who want to come into the travel industry. So it gives them the avenue to grow, it nurtures them, and to scale. And guidance and mentorship, those are things that are involved. So we spoke about removing Travel Hub Okwebi. This is another story on its own that I might not need to go into details with. And we're taking Travel Hub to VI, making it compact, more focused, and from there we can scale. And because right now the rebranding that I am coming in to oversee does not really need the physical space. And when I say oversee, I just mean I was given the responsibility to manage the project and just collect the, bring the team together and just make sure that we're doing. And by the way, we have, don't let me be quick to say we have an amazing team, but everyone in the team is good. And yeah, but so we had that night, we had like a set in stone, setting the focus and kicking ourselves back up conversation over the Google Meet. It was a stretch, right? We looked at every detail, we had objectives, we highlighted it out, and from there we said, team, it's time to get to work. And we've started doing that, getting to work and acting accordingly. Delivering on our deliverables, monitoring our deliverables, assigning tasks, putting delivery dates to it and deadlines to it. And yeah, that was that. There was also tonight, there was a conversation with Egbotolu, who is currently our content strategist, and we were just talking about the content pillars and content guidelines for Luabi Travels. Jachi, who is my executive assistant, was there, and Daniel George, our visual communications person, was also there. So we had that meeting. It was a good one. And what other thing? On Thursday also, I had an interesting conversation that spanned into 100 minutes. It was supposed to take just 7 minutes, and it spanned into 100 minutes, and it was with someone who I would, choose to let his name be undisclosed. But we had an interesting conversation. It was twofold, right? It was really about to talk about, reading a book, the habit around having the habit, to cultivate the habit of reading a book, and also cultivate sticking to a schedule, sticking to to habit, to good habits. We're having that conversation, and it spanned into the question of focus, the conversation about focus, which even eventually, and purpose, finding purpose, which is something I'm going to do a video on. One of these days, and very soon, I'm going to do a video on a question that really plagues the mind of young people today, which is the question of purpose. And I'm going to talk on it. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is how purpose is often conflicted with assignment, right? A person's assignment or duty as to their human responsibility, and purpose, which strikes into something deeper. Purpose speaks to fulfillment, assignment or duty speaks to achievement. We're going to talk about that, right? And that will probably be one of the most important videos or listens or concepts or topic that you might ever have to listen to. So yeah, we had the conversation, and it was a really fruitful conversation. It was an humbling and a sobering conversation for me, particularly because of how it entered into the gospel. This was an unbeliever, and entered into the gospel, and how I've those conversations over and over again, but it's still sobering. It's still very humbling. When these conversations are had, it just humbles me, the grace of God. But that aside, I'm going to have another thing that came up from that conversation that I would even talk about. I don't know if I can talk about it now. Is books, the habit. How to keep an habit of reading books. I'm not the best at it, so I'm not giving you an expert advice. I'm giving you what has worked for me, what I am doing right now that has kept me consistent with reading books. Not consistency in the best way I can be consistent in terms of reading every day, but what has kept me going per se. And there's something I'm doing on my Instagram now, and I'll throw it open to you here. Yesterday's conversation made me realize about how many more things that I can be able to talk about, but I need these questions to come up. So if you have any question on any topic you would like me to talk about, please drop it in the comment section so I can talk about them, right? Anything that revolves around life, entrepreneurship. I believe in there's something. I look at life through the lens of life and godliness. Life as to everything we live as a human being, our human experiences, and godliness as everything that pertains to God, from the lens of God, from the lens of spirituality, from the lens of God, really. And so you can ask questions for that. On questions on that, there's a page dedicated to that, which is Mayor from the 60s. The YouTube channel will soon be up and running. I don't know if it's Mayor from the 60s or Rechurching or Founder, but particularly for these pages is all that pertains to life. So ask me questions that pertains to life, and I will tell you that I may not give the most smartest or wisest answer out there, but I'll give you the answer of what I believe to be true and what I believe works. So yeah, that's that about that. With books, here's what has helped me, and I can narrow it down to 3 things, right? I'll say interest, proximity, and structure. Now I can talk about this in more detail, but this is just from a scribble and because I want to share something. And conversations like this, it's easier for me to go deeper into it. And when I say deeper, it's nothing too deep. It's easier for me to draw into the conversation when I'm when there's a person involved. But right now I'm speaking to a camera, so I'll just do my best. So interest, proximity, accountability. If you have a struggle reading books, here are 3 things that you can do. Number 1 is interest. Pick a book of interest. Do not just pick a book. I believe personally, except you're reading a fictional book, Any books are like custodians of wisdom, custodians of knowledge, custodians of understanding of concept. So if you pick any book, you will surely pick something out of it. Even if it is written by the most random person, you will pick something out of it. But however, we're not just looking about picking something in a book, a word or a phrase. We're looking at sticking through the book and digesting what has been prepared there, and searching out the secrets and treasures in the book. So the first thing is for you to, because we are looking at a journey of consistency, pick a book of interest. Have a why. Your book of, while you might be someone who is, yes, you're an entrepreneur starting a business, you need to learn about sales, but you know that one of the things you need to do is you need to do some restructuring around how you live out your day with habits and things that you want to inculcate. So you pick a book on habits, and that is something that is more pertinent in the moment. So pick a book of interest, right? If it is sales, if it's whatever is interest at that moment, pick a book of interest, because when it's a book of interest, there's a deeper why. Your mind registers a why as to why this book is important and pertinent. So for that reason, exactly, and have a why. So for that reason, it keeps you wanting to go back to that book, to go through that phase, so that your why, that reason that you're trying to feed and satisfy is catered to. When you've done that with interest, the next thing you can do is proximity. Proximity speaks to making the book close to you. Take an intentional step of putting the book close to you, right? And I would presume that whoever is watching this video is someone reasonable. So when you have a book, when you take your book, each day I put my book inside my bag. I put with the intention that Mayowa, you need to find a time to read this book. So by the book's proximity with you, you will always look for cracks and short times that you can always pick up the book to read. And proximity is important because if there is already interest, if you have already picked a book of interest, the moment if you have already picked a book of interest which is anchored on a why or hooked on a why, the moment you pick a book and you read one or two chapters, you're already hooked and you continue. But if the book is not close to you and you have a free time and you just remember that, oh, there's a book I want to read, it's far away, it's at home, you didn't carry it along with you, now you can't, or it's not on your phone, or I'm speaking generally to hardcover books because that's what I know. There's a way you can also solve the problem of proximity on your phone, maybe with reminders. So but when you have reminders and you have the book around you and you are, let's say, going to a office, you want to enter an office and you're told to sit at the reception, what do? You pick up a book, read one or two pages. So proximity also helps. When you have proximity, the next thing you want to do is to create structure, a structure for accountability, self-accountability. And structures could be anything. For me now, one structure I've done is, if I ever have to start a chapter, that day I must finish that chapter. There's no reading it the next day. So while I've picked a book of interest that is anchored on a why, I make sure that the book is always within my proximity. It is available to me with reminders and things that point me to read the book. So I have now created a self-accountability, a memo. You can put it into writing. However, whatever makes a particular structure or system ingrained in your mind in that moment, you want to do it. It could be an alarm, it could be writing it down, it could be an accountability partner. One thing you want to know is, if I pick up a chapter, one thing you can start to do, if I pick up a chapter, I am going to finish that chapter. It could be different things. It could be a page per day, a chapter per day, 2 chapters per day, whatever it is, find something. And the thing is, because it is you reading this book, because it is your own journey, so to say, when you put these foundational things into play, you begin to experiment. The trial and errors you experience with yourself helps you to know what works best for you. And that is where the most important thing is self-accountability and honesty. With self-accountability and honesty and being a person of integrity, you look back at all of these things and know that once you do all these trial and errors, which are not actually trial and errors, they are foundational principles, they are good principles that you can lay on. Once you do this 1, 2, 3 and you've done it over for like a week, you can now know what works for you. You can now know what time of the day works for you and things like that. So for me, these are the three things that has helped me to be able to keep up with reading a book: the interest, the proximity, the structure account, and self accountability. Now that's 4 things. So if you apply these things, you will begin to see a change. This conversation also leads to the conversation on consistency. Now, what happens when you set up a structure? So I say, what happens when you set up a system or an arrangement that you want to follow, but you fail in it? What happens when you schedule? What happens when you say that for the next 7 days, what happens when you say for the next 7 days, I want to create content, and a day you don't? What happens when you say that you want to read this book every day, and for some days you don't? What happens when you schedule your day and you don't meet up to it? I think that will be one of the things we'll talk about in the next video. So what happens when you set out a plan? What happens when you set out a schedule? What happens when you set out a structure, a system to help you to maximize your potential, to help you to maximize your effectiveness, but you fail along the line, right? Or you realize there's a gap along the line, or you do not meet up to it along the line? What do you do? I'll bring this video to a close, and those are things that has just really happened over the week. Today is Thursday. Tomorrow is also an amazing day. I'm excited. Every day is a good day. Glory be to God. I'm excellent. I thank God for what He's doing. Here's to video journaling. Here's to showing up every day. This is day 7. Here is to building in public, and here is to just putting our things out there. Here is to answering questions, which I believe there'll be more. Here is to video journaling in general. I remain your neighborhood travel captain, Mayor of Luabi.